This is the 5th video in our multi-part series, Does the Bible Say the Earth is Flat? In this video, we will take a close look at the Bible verses in Deuteronomy, Exodus, and Psalms. We will attempt to answer the question, does the Bible say that a flat earth floats above the waters? Specifically, do Exodus, Deuteronomy, Psalms say that the earth is a flat earth floating on an enormous hidden ocean of water? For more than 2,000 years, since the time of Aristotle, no educated society has taken seriously the idea that the earth might be flat. Nevertheless, although the Christian Church has never officially required anyone to believe that the earth was flat, many Christians have continued to believe in a flat earth. Where did Christians get this idea? Did they get it from the Bible? Did the Bible's writers believe in a flat earth? Most Christians say no, but some Christians have a different point of view. In the last couple of decades, a rapidly growing movement has emerged within conservative Christianity, claiming that the Bible teaches that the earth is as flat as a pancake. These conservative, Bible-believing Christians are well organized, and they have created many very professional-looking websites. This is just a partial list. They have also published many detailed, extensively documented, well-illustrated books, DVDs, and online videos. These are just a few of the ones that have been published in the past couple of decades. This has caused great distress among biblical creationists who believe that the Christian God created the entire universe slightly more than 6,000 years ago, but also believe in a spherical earth. Why should this bother creationist Christians so much? Don't flat earth Christians have the same right to promote their interpretation of the Bible that creationist Christians do? Maybe creationist Christians are upset because flat earth Christians have borrowed many of their arguments and tactics from creationist Christians. Here are some of the main arguments that creationist Christians use to promote their beliefs. These arguments make just as much sense for flat earth Christianity as they do for creationist Christianity. But do flat earth Christians even have an argument? Is it possible that the Bible really does say that the earth is flat? Surprisingly, flat earth Christians' biblical arguments are strong enough that Bible-believing Christians should really give them some serious thought. In this 6-video series, we will discuss 6 different Bible-based arguments for a flat earth. Each video will discuss a different argument. Links to the other videos in this series are in the YouTube description for this video and on our website. This video will discuss whether Exodus 20 verse 4, Deuteronomy 4:18 and 5:8, and Psalm 24 1 and 2, and Psalm 136:6 say that a flat earth floats on an enormous hidden ocean of water. Let's start with 3 verses that you're probably already familiar with because they are part of the 10 Commandments. Specifically, they are part of commandment number 2. Even though there are several different versions of the 10 Commandments in the Bible, these verses agree with each other very closely. All 3 versions forbid the making and worship of any idol shaped like any fish or anything that is in the water below the earth. This was a very real threat to the Hebrew religion. For example, the Philistine and Assyrian fish god Dagon is discussed in the Bible in 1 Samuel chapter 5. And there was also a Babylonian fish god named Oannes. So what is the water below the earth? What does this phrase mean? If you are like me, you have always simply assumed that this was the oceans, which provide plenty of things that you could make idols out of. But does water under the earth really mean ocean? We now know that modern science tells us that the oceans are not under the earth. Relatively thin oceans float over rock which is thousands of miles thick. But to be fair, we have to interpret these verses in their historical context. That is, the perspective of Hebrews living thousands of years ago when these verses were written. Did the ancient Hebrews believe that the oceans, such as the Mediterranean Sea, were under or below, that is, lower altitude than, the dry land? As a matter of fact, they did not. As we saw in video number 2 of this series, ancient Hebrews and even many relatively modern Christian theologians believed that the oceans were higher than the dry land, and the oceans were only prevented from flooding dry land because God continually held them back. This belief was an attempt to reconcile belief in a flat earth with the valid observation that ships appeared to go over a hill as they sailed away in the ocean. Post-Reformation Christian theologians who believed that the Bible taught this included John Calvin, John Trapp, Matthew Poole, John Gill, Franz Delitzsch, Carl Friedrich Kiel, and many others. We are not going to discuss this further in this video because we covered this topic very thoroughly in video number 2. So, if the ancient Hebrews believed that the oceans, such as the Mediterranean Sea, were higher than the dry land of the earth, what else could the phrase water under the earth possibly be referring to? Springs, caves, and wells may contain water under the earth, but do they fit the description? Wells and springs rarely, if ever, contain life that can be seen without a microscope, and most caves in Israel contain no water at all. Many good examples are the caves that contained the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were so dry that they did a remarkable job of preserving the scrolls for almost 2,000 years. Although caves do occasionally contain small fish, this is so unusual in Israel that I could not find any references to it. I did find some references to a blind cave fish in Oman in the United Arab Emirates. This species, as is typical of cave fish, is totally blind and only about 3 inches long. But it does not seem very likely that millions of Israelites would be tempted to worship a 3-inch long fish. Another possibility is the Dead Sea. It can be said to be under the earth because it is over 1,000 vertical feet below the mountains that surround it. But the Dead Sea is, well, dead, so there are no live fish in it. So what are the characteristics of this mysterious water under the earth? We have seen that it cannot possibly be a surface ocean or sea, such as the Mediterranean, Atlantic, or Dead Sea. We have also seen that it cannot be a well, a spring, or a cave. The Bible also says that this water contains animals that the Israelites will be tempted to worship and make idols of. Are there other Bible passages that might help us better understand what this water under the earth might be? Psalm 24, 1 and 2 is another interesting passage about the relationship between the earth and the oceans. It says that God has founded the earth upon the seas. This is a very strange thing to say, if the earth is in fact a large rocky sphere that is partially covered with relatively thin oceans of water. Did the translators get it right? Let's take a quick look at the way that other Bible versions translate Psalm 24, verse 2. Here is this passage in 6 of the most popular English Bible translations. As you can see, they are consistent with each other, which indicates that the translation is valid and that there is widespread agreement among modern experts in ancient Hebrew about what this passage says. Now, let's take a look at the Hebrew word that is translated foundation or founded. According to Young's and Strong's concordances, the Hebrew word that is translated foundation in Psalm 24:2 is yasad, Many other Bible passages clearly use yasad to refer to a very physical foundation. Here are just a few. 1 Kings 6:37 and 7:10, Isaiah 44:28, Zechariah 8:9, and multiple verses in the book of Ezra. Yasad refers to the foundation of the Hebrew temple, which was made of literal hard stone. So these verses very clearly use yasad to mean a physical stone foundation for a real physical building. But yasad can also be used for a non-physical founding or establishing. For example, Isaiah 14:32 says, "The Lord has founded Zion." In this verse, it means found in the sense of establish. But notice that it still refers to a physical object, Zion, the nation of Israel. This helps us decide how to interpret yasad in Psalm 24:2. Let's look at the context, the words that surround yasad. The earth and all it contains, the world, those who dwell in it, are all physical, real objects. This argues strongly in favor of a literal, physical interpretation of the word founded and the word seize in this verse. So what do conservative Christian theologians say? Matthew Henry, the famous 18th century Protestant theologian, interprets this verse completely literally, saying that there are seas that are a weak and unstable foundation to build the earth upon, and, quote, "Yet it shall serve to bear the weight of this earth, if God uses his power." John Trapp, a well-respected 17th century Anglican theologian, also interprets this verse completely literally, saying that God founded the solid earth on the liquid waters, and that it was a miracle. And Charles Haddon Spurgeon, writing in the late 1800s, said, quote, "It is God who lifts up the earth from out of the sea, so that the dry land, which otherwise might in a moment be submerged as in the days of Noah, is kept from the floods. The hungry jaws of ocean would devour the dry land if the constant fiat of omnipotence did not protect it." John Chrysostom, in ancient times, was the Archbishop of Constantinople from 397 to 404 AD. He was one of the most influential ancient and medieval Christian theologians. More of his writings survive today than any other ancient Christian author except St. Augustine. The Eastern Orthodox, Catholic, Anglican, Coptic, and Lutheran churches still celebrate an annual feast day named for John Chrysostom. Chrysostom said, and I'm only going to read the yellow parts, "When therefore thou beholdest not a small pebble, but the whole earth borne upon the waters, and not submerged, admire the power of him who wrought these marvelous things in a supernatural manner." Then he quotes Psalm 24:2. "He hath founded it upon the seas, and prepared it upon the floods. The water is not able to support a small pebble on its surface, and yet it bears up the earth, great as it is, and mountains, and hills, and cities, and plants, and men, and brutes, and it is not submerged." Athanasius was another very famous, well-respected ancient theologian. He was Archbishop of Alexandria, Egypt, for 45 years, from 328 to 373 AD. He was the chief defender of the doctrine of the Trinity. At the time, he was the chief defender of the doctrine that Christ was equal with God the Father. And Athanasius was the first Christian theologian to identify the same 27 books of the New Testament that Christianity uses today. Athanasius said, quote, "The earth is not supported on itself, but is set upon the realm of the waters." He also said, "Who sees that the earth, heaviest of all things by nature, fixed upon the waters and remaining unmoved, upon what is by nature mobile, will fail to understand that there is one that has made and ordered it, even God. The earth is very heavy, while water, on the other hand, is relatively light. And yet the heavier is supported upon the lighter, and the earth does not sink, but remains immovable. So let's add a category to our list of characteristics for water under the earth. According to the Bible and Christian theologians, it is the literal, physical foundation of the earth. There's one more passage in the Bible that's relevant to this, and I'd like to briefly discuss. Psalm 136, verse 6 says, "To him who spread out the earth above the waters." We're going to discuss this in detail in video number 6 of this series, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll mention it briefly. First, a quick check to make sure the translators agree with each other. Most English Bibles translate this verse about the same way, so there is wide consensus among experts in ancient Hebrew about what this verse says. Now, let's see what conservative Christian commentators say about this verse. In the early 1800s, Adam Clarke, a British Methodist theologian, said, quote, "Stretched out the earth above the waters, or upon the waters. This seems to refer to a central abyss of waters, the existence of which has not been disproved." Charles Ellicott, a famous 19th century Anglican theologian, said, quote, "The earth is regarded as a flat plate that has been beaten out and spread upon the face of the waters." And once again, Charles Haddon Spurgeon said, writing in the 1800s, quote, "The waters of the great deep," Genesis 7:11, "are meant in Psalm 136:6, above which the crust of the earth is outspread. In Proverbs 8:27, the great deep encircles the earth." As I said, this verse, Psalm 136:6, and the whole concept of the earth and sky being spread out is discussed in detail in video number 6 of this series. So if you're interested in more information, please watch that video. There is a link to it in the YouTube description for this video. So we need to add one last characteristic to our list for water under the earth. The earth is spread out above the waters. Let's see how our biblical characteristics match the known facts. It's really difficult to envision how all of this could be true for a spherical, rocky earth that is covered with relatively thin oceans. But it's very easy to see how these characteristics would match a flat earth that is floating on a gigantic ocean. Of course, if the earth really is a sphere, that would mean that the Bible is wrong, and it cannot possibly be inspired by God. If the writers of the Bible did not get this from God, where did they get it? This is an actual drawing of a Babylonian clay tablet which contains the Babylonian creation story. A translation of this tablet is in a book by Albert Clay. Part of this translation says, quote, "All lands were sea. Then what was in the midst of the sea was squeezed out. Marduk laid a reed work, that is a large raft, upon the face of the waters. He created dirt and poured it with the reed work, poured it into the raft, to have gods dwell in a desired habitation. He created mankind." In a different Babylonian clay tablet, we read a similar story. Aglima, the exalted, built the earth over waters, established the heights. This passage of the Babylonian creation story closely resembles Psalm 136:6. And although the details are different, the general concept that the earth floats over a vast body of water appears in the Bible verses that we have discussed and the Babylonian clay tablets. So, did the writers of these Bible passages get their inspiration from God or from the Babylonians? Let's summarize and then we'll be done. These Bible passages describe a body of water that is, first, not a surface ocean or sea such as the Mediterranean, Atlantic, or Dead Sea, and not a well, spring, or cave. These passages describe a body of water that contains animals that Israelites will be tempted to worship and make idols out of. This is the literal, physical foundation of the earth. And the earth is spread out above the waters, according to these Bible verses. This cannot possibly describe a spherical, rocky earth partially covered by relatively thin oceans. It does accurately describe a flat earth floating on an enormous ocean. It closely resembles the Babylonian flat earth floating on water creation myths. So, do these Bible passages say that the earth is flat? We hope we have given you enough information to make a well-informed decision. Thank you for watching our video. Just a friendly reminder that this video is one of a multi-part series. Links to the other videos in this series are in the YouTube description, on our YouTube channel, and on our website. For more interesting videos and more interesting information about the Bible and Christianity, please visit our website, freethinkersbooks.com. If you liked our video, please click the YouTube like icon, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share the video with your friends. Thanks again.